Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of New to Weeaboo. This is number 81 for September 21st. I am Nemesis, and I am joined by Alcatraz here.
Hello.
Yeah, let's see. In the world of anime, funnily enough, there's something that's actually kind of related to the anime we're going to talk about today, which is the Kadokawa thing. Which is several executives there got arrested for the whole, what was it, Olympic fraud, I believe?
Something like that, yeah.
Was the thing, yeah, so that's funny.
Yeah. They are a rather well-known large name.
Yep. Any which way, the actual Kadokawa chairman, Sugihiko Kadokawa, has been arrested on suspicion of offering bribes of totaling 69 million yen to a former executive of the Tokyo Games Organizing Committee. So
Nice.
Fun. That's a thing that popped up recently. Beyond that, just the good old announcements and whatnot coming up of things.
Nothing standout-ish?
I think Genshin Impact is getting an anime. Yeah.
Yeah, Genshin Impact. I saw stuff about that.
Getting an anime. So that's going to be pop up.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't touch the game at all, but it's pretty popular.
I know. But yeah. So we're going to move on to talking about the actual meat of today's show. And that is, the Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. Yeah, it's a well-known anime. To say the least.
Yeah, it's one of those, even I knew about it before.
It was incredibly popular when it came out. When it first came out back in 2006 and then 2009. It was a big deal, and there's one of the things that someone once said that at one point in time, no matter what form you went to, you'd always have to see at least one person with a Haruhi avatar.
God, that's like 2010, 2011 when ponies came out. It was just everywhere.
Yeah, Haruhi was big thing for a while, and then it just suddenly wasn't. I remember that very much. But anyway, Haruhi is about a high school girl named Haruhi Suzumiya, although it's told by Kyon, a guy who winds up sitting in front of her and talks to her and finds out she's kind of a weirdo. Namely, she's interested in things like aliens and espers and time travelers and whatnot. And that's all she's really interested in. He winds up talking to her anyway, and then kind of gets pulled into her nonsense. Because eventually she forms the SOS Brigade, and then they get new members, including one they just basically took from the literature club because she was the only member there anyway. We're just going to take your room, and you're part of the brigade now. We're
going to absorb you.
Nagato Yuki, and then eventually they also met Mikuru Asahina. And then the new mysterious transfer student showed up, who's Itsuki Koizumi. And turns out also, Yuki is an alien android, Mikuru is a time travel, and Koizumi is an esper.
It's funny as you just did what we were talking about earlier. Yuki got a first name treatment, Mikuru got first name treatment, and then Koizumi got last name.
I'm wondering how many people who watch Haruhi actually know what Koizumi's first name is.
Yeah, we were talking about this just before recording. For some reason, Koizumi's first name only got mentioned a couple times, and everyone just goes with Koizumi after that. But the other two members get referred to by both of their names often.
Mm-hmm. So the whole thing is, it turns out Haruhi is kind of weirdly at the center of some supernatural stuff. About 3 years ago, back in middle school, she did drew some symbols on her middle school lawn, and then weird things started happening. And, the aliens, the time travelers, and the espers all want to keep tabs on her.
The barbers and the bakers and the candlestick makers.
And, weird things, adventures happen, and also normal adventures as well. And that's the gist of Haruhi Suzumiya.
Yep. Kyon getting drug into things he didn't want to.
So before I start talking about my opinion, what did you think of it?
What did I think about it? So going through this, I can definitely see why it was as popular as it was. That's not to say that I'm super gung-ho about it and I'm going to start, changing my avatar to Haruhi anytime soon. But I can definitely see why. It has the writing style, the energy in it, and just everything about it. It's fairly well done. I enjoyed it. I probably give it maybe a 7 6 or 7-ish on a scale. Enjoyable, but I'm not like doing cartwheels. Maybe a little long, at least in the main series, but there's some weirdness with that one. So we'll get into that a bit later because that's more detail. That and its pacing is a discussion on its own. But the movie afterwards being 3 hours long. The movie being 3 hours was interesting.
The disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, by the way.
Yeah, which we will talk about that one as well. 3 hours long, but it didn't actually feel like 3 hours.
Right.
Yeah, I think just in general, I enjoyed it. I can see why people really, really liked it. I'm not as gung-ho as they were then, but I can definitely see why they were.
Right. So this is, for me, this is the second time I've watched most of it. I didn't actually, this is my first time watching the movie for this, just recently, so. But I've watched the series before, and I remember at the end of it, I kind of was not really thrilled with it. And that was the first time I watched it. Now rewatching, I was like, why did I not like? I mean, I kind of remember why I didn't like it, but like, this actually is a lot better than I remember. So what the heck is going on? And then got to certain points, and I went, oh yeah, that's why I didn't like it. And there's a couple things about that, but yeah, coming around on this time around, including the movie, I have a much more positive reception to it. I think I just feel like it was this time around I generally enjoyed it more.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it was one of those things I just needed that second viewing.
There definitely are media that are like that, where the second time around it's different. Maybe you gain a new appreciation for it, or your life circumstances have changed and given you the ability to see it in a different perspective,
right.
Or your previous existing knowledge of the media allows you to see further into it the second time.
Perhaps.
It's like when we talked about the original Madoka series.
Right.
How I said the second time we watched, I found a new, what's the word I'm looking for? I found I liked Sayaka Miki more than the first time through.
New appreciation?
That's the word. I found newfound appreciation for her.
Right.
So maybe something like that.
Yeah. The other thing is I also want to mention this is also done by Kyoto Animation, who, well,
like we
big name
earlier.
there too. Yeah, big name, Kyoto Animation.
Kyoto. Yeah.
There's also one of their first projects was this.
Yeah.
Not the first. They also did Full Metal Panic and something called Air. But yeah, this was one of their first big projects was this, and I think this was one of the ones that like really got people's attention.
Yep.
Then they followed up with stuff like Lucky Star and K-On! Nichijou.
Yeah, it's a good first project then. You really got them.
Not the first,
noticed.
but
one of their first. Yeah,
it was really early. So yeah, it was kind of a big thing. And yeah, it was one of the things. On top of that, there's a whole, because it's adopted from a light novel, which is also adopted into a manga. And here's the thing about the light novel, which was it kind of stopped. Didn't end. It stopped because I believe the author decided to just kind of stop writing it until they also added a couple extra chapters very recently. I remember a couple years ago, people were freaking out because new Haruhi. And then it turns out it was just some minor extra chapters, but not really progressing any story stuff.
Aw.
So I was like, oh, because if you look at the listings, you get this massive gap, 2011 to 2020.
What's that one quote? You got my hopes up and dashed them quite expertly, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the other thing about the characters themselves. I'm going to get into those real quick. Kyon is basically, against his better judgment, the voice of reason.
Yeah. Against his better judgment, yeah.
He has been kind of railroaded into joining the SOS Brigade. He had no say in the matter. He just kind of stuck with it, although deep down he will never, ever admit this out loud. He enjoys it.
Except that, in the movie.
He did.
He did, finally.
Well, he didn't admit it to anyone else. He admitted it to himself.
Right, to himself.
So that's not out loud.
Yeah.
So I was still right. So that's the thing. He's kind of just a regular teenage boy. That's his whole thing. He's just a regular teenage boy, warts and all. Because he's sarcastic, he's surly, he complains a lot. But he's also, of course, sometimes he thinks it's a little brain, particularly regarding Mikuru.
Yeah.
A lot with that, like including trying to save the pictures that Haruhi took.
Yeah.
And secret and stuff like that. But generally somewhat of a good guy, but occasionally he's not obviously not perfect.
Yeah. He's a teenage guy.
And he's going to do stupid stuff.
Yeah. There is one particular aspect about him that makes him kind of critical to his relationship with Haruhi, in that when he was in middle school, he did have a slight interest in similar things, but he kind of dropped it. But because of that, that allowed him to make the mistake of asking her about it.
Because Haruhi, she is bossy and arrogant and just barely thinks about others sometimes, as you see through the series. And that's the thing. She's also interested in the supernatural and whatnot, and she didn't retain that from middle school. She never let go, unlike Kyon. And Kyon was the one who struck up conversation with her, and there's a lot of hinting about Haruhi and Kyon and whatnot. And Haruhi pretty much clearly initially developed interest in Kyon, likely because he was the first person to actually at least humor her when she was talking about this stuff, and even show an interest in what she likes. And so, like, asking her about why she's changing her hair, is it for the aliens? Like, yeah, you got it.
Yep.
And that just, she latched onto him, and that was it. She never let go.
Yep.
Yuki Nagato, being a robot, she's largely very emotionless, just kind of sits there quiet, reading her books, and only occasionally kind of joins in on the things, but usually when she has to, either because to make Haruhi happy or to prevent disaster, or sometimes both.
Yeah.
For the most part. And she's just kind of there for large chunks of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yuki's the interesting one. She's incredibly powerful. Like I said, the robot / alien sent by the supreme thought entity, whatever they call it, to watch over
the data integration thought entity.
Yeah, data integration thought entity. It's a great cosmic being outside of space and time.
Yep. And also she can essentially reprogram parts of reality.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, she's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and then you got Mikuru Asahina, who she's the time traveler. She is skittish, kind of shy, very, very cute, apparently. And she's the one who's just very nervous, like she's about ready to just run at any moment.
Yep.
She is the
Moe.
The Moe character.
She's the Moe.
Often forced into cosplay by Haruhi.
Yep.
That's a thing. And then, of course, Koizumi, he's the Esper. He's always got a smile on his face.
Always.
He also is the one who kind of helps figures things out and explains things, particularly to Kyon, who may not be able to understand, like, say, if Yuki explained it. But he's also the most, in a way, kind of the most devoted to Haruhi, and that he is the one who absolutely will just fold for whatever she wants.
Yep.
There's only one time I can think of in pretty much the entire series where he actually kind of put up even mild resistance to her. For the most part, he just kind of goes along with what she wants because of what he believes, which, again, the Haruhi is supposed to be something about her is supernatural in of herself.
Yep.
And we see at one point, there was the thing, Mikuru has one theory, and I guess her group is apparently a group of time travelers, which there's a lot of stuff which they leave very much intentionally unexplained.
Yep.
Basically, their belief is that she's kind of a natural magnet for the supernatural stuff. She just draws it towards her or seeks it somehow, just subconsciously seeks it out. But Koizumi and his group, they believe she's actually causing it. She can actually warp reality, essentially.
Yep.
And I think I would argue that the show itself kind of pushes Koizumi's theory is the right one.
Especially with the movie.
Especially
what they explain in the movie. It kind
not just explain, but it does just throw out this stuff that's just kind of like, this doesn't make sense this doesn't gel with Mikuru's theory.
Yeah.
And then a lot of Mikuru's theory sounds very much like a group of people who are very scared of the idea that there's a reality bender in the early 21st century.
Yep. Yeah. So that explanation gives reason to why Koizumi is just bends over backwards for Haruhi, because effectively he believes that she's basically God.
Yep.
And created his entire organ and gave him powers and such like that.
Which, it's practically for him. He is basically this is practically religion for him.
Yep.
He is working directly with God, who cannot be told about her own powers because who knows what might happen if she knows.
Her emotional maturity would not handle
There's
that
a lot
well.
about that, like what would happen if Haruhi knew, like beyond just, there's this just would she start messing with stuff intentionally like that? And then there's also for her possible psychological issues might start to crop up, like can she trust anything? Like one big thing, for example, is she's clearly, there's a lot of hints throughout the series that she's clearly interested in the Kyon, right?
Right.
And Kyon clearly shows an interest in her, although again, he'd probably deny that for large chunks of time. But then the question was, it would be like, Haruhi might start wondering if she knew about her own powers, is Kyon interested in her because he's actually interested or because she wants him to be interested in her?
Right.
And stuff like that. So it'd be kind of alarming.
And we already know that she's not, what's the word I'm looking for? She has struggles already, a lot that she doesn't present to everyone else. Koizumi has to fight those a lot because of his powers with Esper, which we haven't got into yet.
Yeah.
Apparently, things called closed spaces will randomly appear
When she's upset
when she's upset of something, and it creates this thing inside of them that the Espers have to go in and defeat before it escapes and starts destroying the real world.
Yes.
So since it happens whenever Haruhi's upset, we can obviously tell that she's not all happy all the time like she shows to everyone else. So who knows what would happen if you threw the weight of, oh, by the way, you're basically God on top of it.
Because, that's one of the things they were discussing. Theories like the very real idea that the universe didn't exist until 3 years ago. And that anything that people remember from before that was all manufactured by her.
Yep.
And that very real idea also that the only reason there's a time traveler, an Esper, and a alien android is because she willed them into existence subconsciously.
Yeah,
that is also kind of a scary thought.
Which there's also a really scary thought when you take that into the movie.
Yeah.
With Yuki.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, can God create a box so heavy that not even he can lift it?
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot there. I think one reason I didn't like it initially was there's one specific spot late in the anime called the storyline, the Sai of Haruhi Suzumiya.
Oh, we're going to talk about the Sai first. I thought you were going to talk about the other one first.
No, not that. That spot, the one where they're making the movie.
Yeah.
They're making a movie for their, and at that point, I think that's what really made me negative against the show was because Haruhi's behavior in that particular story got incredibly sociopathic.
You basically just nailed half my notes.
Because, at that point, there's one point where it's like, Kyon is getting really irritated with her, and she's like, at this point, she's more or less, I think she drugged Mikuru.
Mm-hmm. Well, she got her friend to drug her, but
regardless, she was the one who was responsible for it. And she's clearly not handling it, obviously. And Kyon's getting mad and starts yelling at her and also trying to get her to stop doing stuff and tells Haruhi she's not your toy. And then she goes, yes, she is my toy. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, Haruhi.
Yeah.
Before that point, she was just kind of a bossy, sometimes jerkish, but somewhat tolerable. Now it's like, whoa, you just crossed multiple lines. I think, and that's one of the things, though, it's like looking back at it now, is like kind of realizing that she did kind of realize that she did cross a line.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's hard. It's one of those things that's like, if you're not really paying attention, because at that point, it's like, if you're really mad at it, you might not even be noticing this sort of stuff. like it was the first time I watched it.
Yeah.
But looking back, it's like, it's clear she kind of does regret what she was doing and saying.
Yeah. There was a point when Kyon raised his hand.
That too.
And was stopped by Koizumi.
Yeah.
I think that was the first real shock to Haruhi.
Yeah.
Where you could see it, where it's like, she knows, like, oh,
Kyon will always be on my side.
I screwed up.
Yeah, because Kyon will always be on my side, right?
Yeah, she quickly tried to cover it up and act all.
She always does that.
But it's the sort of not quite the almost tsundere kind of as well. That kind of gets kind of huffy as a compensation factor. She did that, but yeah, you basically kind of hit a huge section of my own notes here. When it comes to Haruhi,
This is stuff I've been thinking about for literally years.
yeah, I've only had 2 weeks to think about it. So, Haruhi is an interesting character when it comes to me. So, first off, I would absolutely have loved, and kind of still love, to have a friend like that who would kind of just grab my wrist and take me into things. But she's a bit much. It's like certain aspects of her are I do really like the personality style, and it would be really fun to have. But she takes it across this line.
Mm-hmm.
You hit a certain used one particular word that I have in my notes: sociopathic.
Yep.
That's what she takes it to, where she's going to do what she wants to do, and it doesn't really matter who else is affected by it, as long as she gets what she wants. The next one is that she also starts to delve into actual narcissistic behaviors as well, because it's all about her. I mean, part of that is like, if she truly is God, well, then it kind of is all about her, but still.
She really is the center of the universe.
She literally is, but still, that doesn't give you the right.
Yeah, and that doesn't help.
It does give you the right, but it doesn't give you the right.
It doesn't help that also on top of that, Koizumi in particular and the large chunk of the SOS Brigade are helping that because they're afraid of what will happen if she's upset.
Right.
Kyon, that's the weird thing, is Kyon is the only one of all of them who's actually willing to go against Haruhi.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And again, like, there might be some attempts at explaining why she's like this. Well, like I mentioned earlier, it's obviously she's not all okay. She does have struggles, and who knows, there may be some, tragic past to her. I don't know. It might be in the light novel. I've never read the light novel. There might be something like that explains her behavior. It still doesn't, whatever it is, it does not excuse her behavior, but it may explain it.
And this is also part of the reason why this show in general is kind of divisive, was Haruhi. Yeah. Haruhi, her specifically, is just the big thing, because she's such a central part of it, and she acts like this, and
yeah,
it can kill it for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's like parts of me really like certain aspects of Haruhi's personality. If they were to rein it in a little bit.
Mm-hmm. That was so. The thing is that the side of Haruhi it was pretty much the worst of it.
Yeah.
Everything beyond that is just, she's kind of bossy and a little too energetic, but
the Psy was definitely the worst.
The low point.
Her sociopathicness.
Yeah.
Which sucks, because there was a chance to go a different direction to fix it.
Mm-hmm. So the other thing about Haruhi, I think the other thing that kind of can kill it for other people is a very specific block of episodes, which of course I think a lot of you already figured out what we're talking about, which is Endless 8.
Yep, and this one I think we're going to have a slight disagreement on.
I don't know, but Endless 8 is... Oh boy, Endless 8 is a block of 8 episodes, which basically covers a 2-week time frame where there's a time loop for them, because Haruhi desperately wants something that they don't know what to give her for the summer vacation they're having, the last 2 weeks of summer vacation. And so they keep repeating it over and over again, to literally over 15,000 times. As a
15,500
Nagato, who apparently kind of somewhat exists outside of time, can attest to.
Yep. She doesn't exist, but she's connected to a thing that is. Yeah. So she's just constantly re-downloading the memories. Yeah.
Yeah. So what happens is it literally starts off with just one episode, just a normal summer nonsense, right?
Yep.
And then the second episode is the exact same thing, but a bit different. It's, different clothing, different camera angles, some different dialogue, but then also the deja vu starts kicking in for Kyon and Koizumi.
Yep.
And then they discover that they've done this before. And that's pretty much a setup for the exact same thing for the next 6 episodes after that. And then the final 8th episode is the one where they finally break the loop by Kyon going, hey, I want to study because I haven't done any of my homework. Yeah, that was what Haruhi wanted, apparently, was to do the big summer study session. Or something like that. Regardless, it was enough to get her to stop resetting time. There are 2 thought processes about it regarding Endless 8, because it is an 8 episodes out of 28 which is over a quarter of the anime is devoted to this one thing, which apparently in the original story is like half a chapter. So it's not even that long in the original.
So they stretched it out for the anime.
Way out. There's one which is it is a masterpiece of anime, essentially a brilliant stroke, or there's the other thing which is it is a self-indulgent director who should have been reined in. I'm of the latter.
I'm in neither camp.
It's just simply
I'm in neither camp.
A lot of people, including myself, really think Endless 8 kind of kills the anime a bit. It really hurts it, and I genuinely think that's like it shouldn't have been done like that. I get why, but I really don't like it. It goes on way too long. It's hard to get through. And both times I watched it, I had to really pace myself because, God, it's hard. Never, ever binge watch all of Endless 8 in one go.
That part I'll agree with. That part
I would outright say, if you really can, and a lot of people, purists, will scream about you can't do this, you absolutely can skip a large chunk of it. Watch 1, 2, and 8. Good. You're done. You got pretty much all you need to know. A lot of people scream about it, but I'm going to say...
You're technically not wrong. You're definitely not wrong. Yeah. So, my thoughts on Endless 8. You like, what's the reverse of hype? What is the antonym to hype?
I don't know.
Where you're playing it up, hyping is, oh, it's so great, so great. What's the opposite of saying the opposite? Oh, it's horrible, it's horrible, it's horrible, it's horrible. Playing it down was that much. You played it down. Personally, I think you played it down a little bit too much. I didn't really think it was that bad. Was it a bit? Yeah, it was. Obviously, it was repetitive. And yes, what's that? 5 out of 8 episodes don't technically add anything new. The first one adds everything new because it's the first one. The second one adds it's a time loop, and the last one breaks the time loop. But I was able to, because you were warning me to pace yourself one at a time, or it's not gonna make. It's like now, I watched it in like all of them in 3 days. Mm. I was doing 2 at a time because I was like, no, this isn't that bad. For me personally, though, it's really how you get through it is gonna be definitely personal in how you react to certain things, especially when it comes to repetition. How do you deal with repetitive things? For me, it's not that bad.
Right.
One of the things for me that made it better is the fact that the camera angles are different, the dialogue is different.
Barely.
So you can sit. It's enough. It's what it is you watch through and you look for the differences. That becomes the goal. It's like, okay, where are the slight differences now? Where are they? And it lets me sit there and think and watch those things. Being able to repetitively watch the same thing in slightly different perspectives, I can start to try and predict, okay, where is the loop? Where are we now? Where are we now? Where are we now? Where are we now? And it lets me build things in my head, and I do like that. Now, I will say 8 episodes was too long. They probably could have been better if this was like 5. Right. And maybe with a few other differences. What I would have liked to have seen were some of those special instances that Yuki mentioned. Yep. That would have been perfect.
The different part-time jobs.
One of the 2 times they didn't go to the festival or something like that. But for me, being able to see, like, okay, which mask is she going to get this time? Which loop are we on? Seeing, the first time we see how many times, and then the next episode after that is literally the next loop, and then we jump forward like 50 loops on the next one, and then 3 loops, and then 5 loops, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It was a bit overly repetitive. I was super enthused, like, I don't think it's a masterpiece. It definitely wasn't, and it could have definitely been done better. But for me personally, it wasn't a huge slog. Also remember, I'm the kind of person who likes movies like Primer.
Yeah.
Where there are 9 different timelines, and every single time you watch the movie, you see something new, and you'll sit and rewatch the same exact movie multiple times and enjoy it. And I found you really don't like repetition in a lot of things. So if you're a person who doesn't like repetition, like you, this is going to suck.
Do like a lot of repetition.
I know it's weird. You're weird about repetition. Sometimes you absolutely detest any repetition, and other times I will see you literally bash your head against a wall in a same wall in a video game for like 2 hours with no difference. Let's go play Elden Ring again. It's like, God. But yeah, it was one. But for me personally, you overplayed how bad it was for me, and I was like, this isn't that bad. And then I hit the sigh, when this is way worse.
That one I wanted to leave as a surprise. I didn't want to warn you about that part because the other thing was like I couldn't remember if you had heard about Endless 8 before.
I hadn't heard of
Endless 8 is always comes up when people talk about Haruhi. Endless 8's always like right up next.
All I knew about Haruhi was her face and the song.
Right.
From second to last, third to last episode. That's all I knew going. So I didn't know anything about the Psy or Endless 8 or anything like that. But I did mention something earlier. The chance of fixing her or starting to fix her sociopathic tendency happens at the end of the Endless 8 when Kyon steps up. Like you mentioned that what she wanted to do was a study session. She didn't want to do a study session. Yeah. What it felt like to me, and kind of gets ruined by the Psy afterwards, but it felt like to me what she was looking for was for someone else to step up, to say something and do something. I think in her, the way it feels like to me, I'm not certain how it, because again, like I said, the Psy and her sociopathic tendencies and the Psy and sort of the narcissistic parts kind of ruin this. But it felt like me at the time is what she was looking for was to not be the only one pushing things forward and to someone else to be part of it. And having him step and go, no, I want to do this, while she gets all kind of huffy and how dare you order things on. That's kind of what she was looking for, was for someone to step up instead of just kind of following. Because in that case, what it means is she's the leader of the group, but if someone else is wanting to contribute, that means she's being a good leader. And, people want to be part of this group. That's what it felt like at the time. And I felt like that was...
think so.
Like I said, especially after the Psy, that kind of gets ruined.
Yeah,
I think that was a point in the episode where they could have started to adjust her character to be less narcissistic and sociopathic, and then they didn't.
Anyway. I think it's a lot simpler. It's just simply she just wanted to do something else for the last day of summer vacation.
But she didn't know what.
She didn't know what. She just wanted to do something with the group, and with nothing there, she was upset that there was nothing happening. So when Kyon finally said, let's do this thing, she jumped on it because it was something to do with the group.
Although she had to be huffy about it, and how dare you say something? It's not
because she likes to have control.
But she wanted something to do, which is also kind of sucks because once they learned that they were in a loop, it made them less likely to stand up because now they're all depressed.
Well, they're also racking their brains about what to do to fix it.
Yeah, and they're all super sad because, oh God, it's the next day and we're all going to reset again.
Yeah, so one thing also, there's one really cool thing they did in Endless 8. I don't remember which one. I think it was like 5 or 6. Where they had the camera where it was following the ticks of the clock, so that the camera was spinning.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool.
I see that effect a lot. It's a very common effect to use where it'll focus on a clock, but the camera will stick to the second hand.
But so the second hand doesn't move. The clock, they then turn it around, now it's focused on Kyon while it's spinning.
Yeah,
tick by tick, and then just when it's about to hit midnight, black.
Yep.
Because that was one of those things I almost wanted. What happens if he stays up past midnight instead of going to bed? What happens?
Probably just
probably snap back. Boy, that would be funny if that was, hey, guess what? You can retain your memory if you do it that way.
Oh, man. One thing, it's like... one thing, watching the whole thing was... I don't know, I wish, again, it was one of those, I wish they would have done more with this, and they didn't. Ways they could have made Endless 8 better. The points of their deja vu, I in my head I kept wanting to call them inflection points,
right?
Because that's kind of what they seemed, points of importance. They ended up not being. I wish they were. But watching for Kyon and Koizumi's deja vu points, because they went back and forth. One would have one, then the other one would have them. They don't really focus on Koizumi's, but you can see them after a while. It's like, okay, this is where he was having a deja vu point.
Yep.
Like they had the one at the pool.
Yep.
I think his was before Kyon's at the pool, because Kyon was when he sees Yuki seeing bored, and then the kids come over.
Yep.
But Kyon's was first, and that's what spawns there. Oh, I'm probably just being paranoid. conversation with Koizumi. The other one is in the restaurant looking at the list of things to do. Can I see that for a minute? Yeah, that's another point for Koizumi. I wish they would have focused on that more, because that would have been kind of cool. Like, okay, these are important points that something can happen, and then nothing ever did.
But it's not Koizumi's story, is it?
It could have been Koizumi and Kion's.
No, that's the thing. It's not this whole anime. It's not Koizumi's story.
No, it's
Kion and Haruhi's.
Right. But Kion had those same inflection points. But I wish more of his were important too.
The other thing is, that was one thing I noticed in the anime itself, in the series. Yuki didn't actually feature much, even though she did a lot, which is weird when you think about it.
Yeah, she did a lot. I mean,
which
she started
is why,
in the beginning.
It's why it's so great that the disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, the movie, focused so hard on Yuki.
Yes.
It was one of those things that I was kind of coming in kind of like almost to the same point I was the first time I watched it, but after watching the movie, it's like, okay, yeah, this was all worth it.
The movie
really is phenomenal.
The movie is amazing.
I was not prepared for that because I never saw it before, and because my first thing was that once I finished the series, like, why should I watch the movie?
I didn't like the series. Why am I going to like the movie?
Yeah, and that's at that time the movie's not on any streaming service. You have to buy the Blu-ray or whatever. I'm like, I'm not gonna go deal with that. I'm just not gonna watch it. But for this, well, gotta watch it, and wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier, it's a 3-hour movie, but
2 hours and 41 minutes, and man,
it didn't feel like it. The pacing was such that it didn't feel like it was that long.
This is also, the movie came out in 2011. It's one of those, Kyoto Animation at this point has gone a lot more under their belt, and thus I feel this is a much more mature Kyoto Animation.
Yeah.
And it really shows the improvements they have made since 2006 when they released Haruhi Suzumiya the first season. The whole thing is the world just changes, right? And you got Kyon all of a sudden just wakes up and everything's different.
December 18th.
Yeah, December 18th. Everything's different. His friend's sick. The memories don't seem to line up with him. Haruhi's not even in class. And then why is she here? Because in the series there was the girl, what's her? She was the backup of Yuki.
Ryoko Asakura.
Yeah. She, tried to stab Kyon once just to see how Haruhi would react.
Yeah.
She just want to see what happened. And she's back, and nothing happens. Like, he's understandably a little freaked out, and
you tried to
everyone's
kill me.
seeing him like he's the crazy one, because everyone's like, "What? Who's Haruhi?" Tries to talk to Mikuru, just scares the crap out of her.
Yeah.
Tries to talk to Yuki, who's just kind of confused, but I guess hopeful for someone to talk to her, I guess. Because, everyone's different. There's no time traveling, no Esper, no aliens, just normal people.
Yep.
And also Koizumi's not even there either, and there's no class 9.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just until Yuki's just a normal shy girl who just likes books, and then he eventually is this whole thing where Kyon finally taught the Haruhi thing, and then his friend her.
There was one bit before that in the literature club room, because he starts hanging out there out of habit starts hanging out there, but then all of a sudden he sees a book that Yuki put a note in one time for him,
because we also remember the PC was there, which it should
not have ever been there, but suddenly it's okay, so this is different. And then he finds the book, finds a special note. It was what was it? Program
find the keys.
Well, because it was like, I'm trying to remember the exact quote, but
it's basically find the key and run
time out 2 days.
Yep, and he.
So it's like, okay, this is.
And then he gets the info from his friend who knew Haruhi in middle school and found out where she went, and he went there, and turns out this school, which was an all-girls school, is now a co-ed school. And there's Kozumi's there, and he's able to talk to her because in the series as well, he went back in time to help Haruhi with writing those letters in middle school
3 years ago.
He called himself John Smith. And there he talked about John Smith, and she didn't, because at first she didn't believe him, because this was weird.
Yeah.
You're just some weirdo. And then when he said that, it just got through to her.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
Because she knew. And she recognized his face at this point too.
Yep.
You're the guy. How are you?
How the heck?
At that point, she has to believe him.
Yeah. Like, I've never told a single soul, how the hell do you know this?
you're the guy. So then he tells her all this stuff, and like, that sounds way more fun. That's her whole thing. That sounds way more fun.
That's amazing.
And then he like got everyone assembled, and that turns out what he needed to do, and then that sent him back in time again to 3 years ago, and then finds out that Yuki was the one who messed up the world, because it turns out there's errors in her program, which he just figured out was actually emotions.
Yep. And
she rewrote the world so that she could be a normal high school girl.
Yeah.
And the past Yuki gave him a gun to shoot in her to reset her, so she'd be back without the errors. And then he couldn't do that. Instead, he kind of talked to her, and then, oh, hey, what's her face? Hey, Ryoko showed up again.
Yep. And stabbed him.
For real. And then
Kyon showed up.
Yeah, that ending was a little odd.
That was a little weird ending.
Yeah, and more nonsense.
Time travel. It's a cornucopia of
time travel
concepts.
And dimension and not dimension, but reality shifting.
Yeah.
All combined in one, and he's seeing two Mikurus at the same time, the adult version, because she shows up a lot too sometimes. And
yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of little things too that like that again is like we don't talk about. But yeah, then he just wakes up in hospital bed having apparently hit his head, which sounds like a basically reality trying to warp to why he's not available for the last few days, because he's in hospital because he slipped and hit his head instead of being stabbed.
Or someone said that and set that up just to make it work. I don't know. They don't explain that part.
He didn't have the knife injury anymore. I noticed that. That was one thing. I think that was the whole idea. That's what Yuki did when she fixed it. Was she made an explanation as to why he was gone for several days. Yeah. Because
his memories are intact.
Yeah, his memories are intact. Everyone else kind of went with, everyone else believes he just slipped and hit his head because that's what happened, right?
With the mysterious girl that may have pushed him down the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Which is interesting in of itself.
Which, again, not explained.
Yeah, there's a lot of little things like that. But it was, and then him talking to Yuki at the end, and it was just, man, I was emotional. I did not expect that.
Hashtag better end for Yuki.
Yeah, this was one of the things, which leads into another thing for Haruhi, which is another big topic, which is watch order.
Oh, boy.
Because originally when it aired in 2006, it was 14 episodes, and it started off with the Adventures of Mikuru Asahina episode 00, aka the weird, stupid movie they made. That's what it started with. And then went to the Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya part 1, but didn't air those all in one block. It jumped around. It was intentionally aired out of order because they're trying to catch people's attention.
Oh.
So you had that, then part 2 of Melancholy, then Boredom, then Melancholy part 3, then Remote Island Syndrome part 1, then Mysterious Sign, then Remote Island Syndrome part 2, then Someday in the Rain, then Melancholy part 4, then Dave Sagittarius, then Live Alive, or Live Alive, I'm not sure which one.
Yeah.
And Melancholy 5 and 6. Because remember at the end of Melancholy 6, Kyon kissed Haruhi in the closed space they're stuck in.
Right.
And if you think about that, that actually makes sense as a finale instead of 6 episodes in.
Yeah.
You think about it from a emotional watching standpoint for the audience. The culmination, which is Kyon finally kisses Haruhi.
Yeah, it would make sense.
Instead, we get 6 episodes and then we do it, and then we don't really talk about it. But then when they did season 2 in 2009, what they did was they also re-aired season 1, but they all put it all mixed in the proper chronological order. So then you got Melancholy part 1 through 6, and then Boredom, and so on and so forth. Endless 8 right smack in the middle, and then the Sai of Haruhi Suzumiya, which is how they made the movie. Then Adventures of Mikuru, episode 0, and all that stuff. And then Someday in the Rain, which is a weird, when you think about Someday in the Rain, is the one where Kyon has to go get the heater.
Yeah.
It's kind of, when you think about it, that's a weird way to end it. Because it wasn't supposed to be the ending. At least not initially, but it is chronologically at the end of all this. But when you add the movie in, I feel the chronological order works better. Because if you don't watch the movie, then I think the original order might work better. I can understand why that would work better from a narrative payoff standpoint. But when you add in the movie, I think the chronological order works better, particularly with the one where they play the game from the computer club.
Yeah.
Because that had Yuki's thing. Yeah, that had Yuki's little thing right there. That's right before the movie, essentially. So we're leading into Yuki starting to get emotions and stuff, essentially.
Yeah.
So I think when they add in disappearance, I personally feel that works better. Though a lot of people are very dogmatic about watching it in the original airing order.
Yeah, I feel watching it in the chronological order, like, what Crunchyroll has listed,
Yes.
worked perfectly fine. I think it would have just been more confusing trying to do it in the original airing like that.
Yeah.
It does mean that the last 4 episodes are kind of weird. Because you suddenly get the adventures of Mikuru, then Love Alive with the song, and so all of a sudden, like, the last four episodes just feel like just random arbitrary slice of life stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with everything else surrounding it, especially like you said, the movie, I think it works out this way better.
Yeah, because it's funny that apparently often fans call the original airing order as Kyon's order, and then there's a final chronological order as Haruhi's order.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's just the whole idea was with the original airing order is also the whole idea was you don't really know what's going on. So it's jumping around a lot, so you can kind of build it up in your head, and you finally get to part 6, and you kind of have a really good idea by that point what's going on. The chronological order puts it in the correct chronological order. Now a lot of that's gone, so it's one of those things where it's like, and they have this weird, they're re-airing the first season 1 and randomly interspersing the new season 2 stuff when it's supposed to go in and everything.
Right.
Which is why, if you notice, the original OP came back for the last few episodes because of that.
Yeah.
You're like, why did that happen? Oh, that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah, I personally feel that I think chronological order will work just fine, and particularly if you died in the movie. As I can see why, though, but there are some people who insist that you got to watch in the original order.
Yeah.
I disagree.
Yeah. There's
There's also some people who are going to say, regardless of which order you watch the rest of it, and watch The Adventures of Mikuru episode 0 first. Which I can kind of understand that one, because it is kind of the weird throw you in the deep end and then explain stuff.
Right. Yeah. There's a name for that.
In media res?
I think that's what it is. In media res.
That's you throw someone in the middle of the story and then
go
backtrack.
And then yeah.
Yeah, it's in media res. The other thing I want to talk about real quick, I don't want to get too in depth on a lot of stuff because there's a lot of stuff in this whatnot. There are a couple spinoffs. One of which is a short comedic one called The Melancholy of Haruhi-chan, which is they're all chibified and it's CG and it's just goofy and short, right? There's nothing really story-wise special about it. It's just goofy stuff. But the other spinoff is called The Disappearance of Nagato Yuki, which is essentially inspired by the movie in that universe where everyone is just normal for the most part. And I haven't watched it myself yet, but I think we're going to try to do that pretty soon.
Might be interesting.
Because
I want to see more Yuki, especially with what they did in the movie.
Yeah, it's very much inspired by what the movie timeline, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested in that. It's about half the length. It's only 14 episodes and came out a few years later.
Normal length.
14 episodes is not quite normal, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a little longer, but yeah.
But yeah, the only problem with that one is on Funimation only for some reason at this point.
They haven't moved it over yet.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Oh,
Because Haruhi, the main series, is on Crunchyroll, but the 2 spin-offs are still stuck on Funimation, and no streaming service, as far as I can tell, has the movie. At least not without, paying for it outright. Like I think it might be on Amazon, but you have to pay for it,
Yeah. One thing about the movie, I mentioned earlier, like, can God make a box so heavy you can't? What Yuki did is really interesting. If we subscribe to the theory that Haruhi Suzumiya is effectively God and is the one doing these things and creating these things, that would mean that the thought entity and thus Yuki are effectively creations of Haruhi.
Haruhi, yes.
Yuki stole Haruhi's power and eliminated it.
Yep.
Haruhi then, you would say that Haruhi then created an entity more powerful than she is.
Not necessarily. I mean,
because Yuki was able to remove Haruhi's power.
Madoka. Tomura is not more powerful than Madoka, and yet she was able to steal her power.
By time traveling beyond it. It's...
What I'm saying is there's lots of stories about someone being able to steal God's power despite not being God more powerful than God themselves.
Yeah, but that's one of those... I'm not saying it can't be done. I mean, it happened, but it's one of those like, holy crap! You literally created something that can take your power.
They also are talking about someone who knows what they're doing versus someone who has no idea any of this is going on.
Yeah. Also, there was apparently a slight limitation, or it may have been purposeful limit. Yuki didn't actually change everything. She only changed 1 year in the past and adjusted things from that point, which is why Kyon was able to talk to Haruhi and say, hey, yeah, I time traveled 3 years ago. I was John Smith, because that wasn't affected.
And also why he was able to go back again and, meeting Haruhi and also meeting the older Mikuru.
Yep. Yeah, all of that. We won't talk about the rest of the time travel because that just gets
classified.
It's also an absolute jumbled mess.
Classified.
As time travel usually is. Yeah, what the TSDD?
Something like that.
TPDD?
Yeah.
Destructoid device?
Time travel.
Like, I don't want to know why it's called that.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I want to say Mikuru is also kind of a weird in character in that she's once again someone important, but she's not the main focus. And I also think was like, Kyon clearly
has a thing for her.
Yeah, he finds her very attractive and everything, and she's safe. But again, it's a pretty clear. That's another I almost want to mention, which there's several times throughout I've noticed that Haruhi gets kind of intervenes when he notices Kyon getting a little too close to Mikuru. She'll some of the excuse. For example, there's that one time where she offered her bottle of I think it was tea to Kyon and said, "Oh, I'm sorry if I drank from it." He's all and he's all excited. And then she just Haruhi immediately just comes and grabs it, and you don't get to drink anything till after we're done.
Yeah,
it's like She also had this look on her face. She had this just stopped like, and then comes with an excuse as to why she did that.
Yeah, I said she had some slight tsundere, but then sometimes she gets a little bit of yandere too.
She just, she's just very much.
She obviously, has things for him and doesn't want other people there.
She wants Kyon all to herself.
Much to Koizumi's chagrin.
Yeah, well,
which he mentions multiple times.
That other Koizumi, anyway, it's kind of a...
They both kind of mentioned it. I'm a bit jealous of you, especially like in the movie. Yeah. He said, I'm a bit jealous of you. I was like, and then he pointed down.
That was another one.
Look, there she is sleeping.
This is an interesting one. That was also the one in Endless Eight. There were several times when they're talking, when they're doing the stargazing, Kyon and Kazumi are talking.
Yeah.
And he talks, he just suggests maybe you should just someone should wrap their arms around him and say, I love you to her.
Yeah.
And then who's going to do that? And then Koizumi's like, maybe I should do it. And then they don't show his face, but they make it clear that Kyon is not thrilled with the idea. Because Kazumi gets this genuinely like surprised look on his face when he looks at Kyon after he's suggested that.
Yeah, they don't really show Kyon's face. They show like he doesn't have any other real physical reactions some of the times. Sometimes you can kind of see him shift a little bit. Sometimes he doesn't shift at all because like you'll be seeing him from the back. But then and then Koizumi chuckles and goes, I don't have a...
Yeah.
I'm missing a certain something.
Yeah, it's pretty... They make it pretty clear that I think that Kyon is not really on board with the idea, mostly because of who would be doing it in that case.
Yeah. But also kind of points out that Koizumi does kind of like Haruhi. Which makes sense. She's God to him.
Yep. Would you take the chance to bang God?
So this is 2 anime now where God is a small girl.
Yep.
One's a middle school girl and this one's a high school girl.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was, again, originally a light novel and all that stuff. Ran for a while. There was a manga that was briefly run. Didn't run that long. At least the initial one. And then there was another manga which ran way longer. And that's over. And yeah, it was, my great understanding, the author straight up just quit.
Just stop. I'm done.
No ending. And I recall a lot of people were very upset because this is really popular. We're making tons of money. What do you mean you quit?
I quit.
And that was that because they were like envisioning a much longer anime run. They couldn't do it because there's nothing left. And they didn't have the rights to adapt their own stories for it. Yeah. So that's it. The only thing I want to briefly also mention is, particularly on the early episode, I noticed kind of was more restrained in later episodes, which very much they like to do the good old anime bouncing and whatnot for Haruhi and Mikuru in particular.
Yeah.
And of course the good old boob pocket shirts but they kind of went away after a while.
Yeah, well, they didn't really calm down on Haruhi harassing Mikuru.
Yep.
It's like,
you're going to change into this. What?
Forcing her to change and stripping her. And it's like, it's not great.
Not great.
Although, they do some funny animation. Like the one time, was it with the Santa suit or something like that, where they kind of show like the camera through the bookshelf and Yuki's just strategically moving the book so you can't actually see anything.
It wasn't. Yeah, that wasn't.
I can't remember what outfit it was, but that was one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff we probably didn't mention in detail, but there's a lot to go through. And again, it's 20 episodes plus a almost 3 hour movie, and then there's a spin-off, which he only briefly mentioned because, well, he hasn't watched either of them. I only watched one of the spin-offs.
Yeah.
And that was the shorts, because at the time it was like, I think I was watching it because, oh crap, it's about to be removed from Crunchyroll. And now it's back on, well, that one's not back, but Haruhi main series is back on Crunchyroll. But it was just funny because basically when I went, it was back in my my queue, because it's like it never left.
Like it was always there to begin with.
So anyway, which way should you watch it? Yeah, probably. I mean, if you haven't already. I mean, if you're younger weeb, then you might not have watched it yet.
Yeah, it's one of those cultural, like anime,
big deal.
Cultural important ones.
Oh, it's a big deal.
Yeah, so it's one of those, if you want to know, even if you may not like it a lot, it is one of those where it's important to the general anime history.
Mm-hmm.
So probably should. I would say watch it so you can watch the movie.
Yeah,
the movie is good. Makes me feel bad for you.
Yeah, it's constantly referenced in later stuff.
Yeah, you cannot watch the movie without watching the series.
Not just the series, but I'm just talking about Haruhi in general. Haruhi in general is constantly referenced throughout. The dance they did in the season 1 ED.
Oh yeah,
like that's referenced frequently. Just all sorts of stuff like that. It's just it was a big deal.
Yep.
Until it suddenly wasn't. I think because Endless 8 did kill a lot of people's interest.
Yeah.
A lot of people dropped off when they realized Endless 8 was what it was. Because it's one of those things where binge watching it is really hard, but I can't imagine it's got to be a special hell to be out of when watching it when it was airing.
You only get once a week. It comes on and you go, oh, it's this again.
We're doing it again. Some people have figured out, oh my God, they're actually going to go 8 episodes of this, aren't they? 8 of the 14 brand new episodes are Endless 8. Which was, kind of cruel.
It would, like I said, it would have been better if they would have made more slight changes or shown some of the different ones that Yuki mentions, where things were slightly different. Maybe they, one of the ones where they had a different job. Even if overall nothing else changes, just more differences to keep a little bit more interest and more stuff going on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The actual SOS Brigade, the SOS part.
No.
It stands for, depending on which translation you want to go, spreading excitement all over the world with Haruhi Suzumiya Brigade, with lots of very, very loose acronym usage there.
Yep.
Or Sekai Oini Murigaru Tame no Suzumiya Haruhi no Dan. Or in the official paperwork, it's support the student body by overworking to make the world a better place student service brigade. Basically, we got to make it look good so they don't actually reject the club.
Yep. Yeah.
So yeah, there you go.
And apparently, Haruhi can draw logos that are info hazards.
Yep.
Cognito hazards. That was an episode.
This somehow has petabytes of data despite the fact it's only like a few hundred K.
Yep.
Oops.
Cognito hazards. Yeah.
I believe that's going to be more or less it because we're already hitting an hour.
Yeah.
There's a lot to go through.
There's a lot.
We try to hit, I think, it's the most important stuff. I think we did.
Yeah.
Maybe I've accidentally glossed over something, but whatever. Oh, yeah, there's a talking cat named Shamisen.
Oh, yeah. That was the thing.
He was a talking cat for a while, and then he wasn't. That was just a normal cat. Oh, well.
Well, he could still talk. Like, even in the end of the movie, you could hear him You hear him talk once when he gets pulled off the bed. He's like, oh yeah, he's got his voice back.
Yeah.
He made a grunting noise. It was like, yep. There he is again.
But anyways, that's it for real.
Yep.
I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you could check out other episodes on newtoweeaboo.libsyn.com. It's spelled LABSYN. Subscribe to the newest the RSS feed there if you want to keep up to date, or you can subscribe via the other methods, which Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and Amazon Podcasts. All but the Amazon version are buttons at the Libsyn site as well. But regardless, you could search for us on any of those and find us that way. And if you want to contact us, you could do so via email, newtoweeaboo@gmail.com if you have questions or anime suggestions, or hey, stupid, you forgot to talk about this really important thing from Haruhi or whatever. This one important thing, which is like
super important thing that totally changes everything.
But yeah, that's a thing you can do, I guess. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter or at newtoweeaboo and see us there, see as we tweet out new episodes and all that stuff. You can also follow personal Twitters. I'm at MSPrime1 and he's at Alcatraz and 77T and an underscore at the end. I've been tweeting reviews because doing that.
Yep.
Slowly.
Yep.
Making a dent. And then adding
more to it.
Because it's like everything got pushed back and now it's all coming out. It's all supposed to come out over the last 4 months, and now it's all coming out in late September. Oh, well.
Alas.
Anyway, join us next time. It'll be October by that point, and we'll be talking about Uma Musume.
Hey!
Yep.
Horse girls.
Yep, horse girls. So we shall see you then.
See ya.
Yeah. Don't trip and get your leg broken.
You know what happens when you break your leg. When horses break their leg.
Oh, no. Anyway, bye.